Welcome to GLCast, the official podcast of GLProUK. GLProUK is a London-based creative studio working with a diverse range of companies, individuals and brands across multiple platforms to provide a wraparound service for all your digital content creation requirements. My name is Greg Armstrong. I'm Head of Digital Marketing here at GLProUK and I'm joined by Managing Director Jay Ludgrove. This episode, we discuss on how to start a podcast blog series entitled Brand, Show, Structure and Music. The business world is constantly changing, and with it are the ways you can connect with your audience and reach out your audience. Podcasting has now taken its place on the mantle alongside all the original ways from video, from web, all platforms. Podcasting is now just as important to many businesses.
It really does seem that there's a sudden massive resurgence.
Yes, yeah. Was it big before to have a resurgence?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, but it seems really coming into the mainstream now. Obviously, we've been working with podcasting for years, but it seems now more and more when I'm talking to people, they'll say, you do podcasting. What do we do?
And I love it when they ask that way, as if it's two separate words. Podcasting. Yes, I'm aware of it. I'm aware of the podcasting you speak of. It's such a big thing now that companies, so I've been aware, and I've mentioned this previously, I've been aware of companies that have started using podcasting almost as a way to do their internal newsletter. Mm-hmm. All staff have to listen to this and they send it out as opposed to just sending an email that no one's going to read.
And that's cool. It's simple.
It's very simple.
And that's a nice way of getting it out there.
And that's it in its very basic form. That's it internally being used. You know, and that's probably someone in head office being like, oh, I want to do a podcast, but I don't want other people to hear it, so I just do it for the staff. Which sounds really fun because you can get people from other studios, the manager of the month in and what have you. But now we're breaking out of that and it's going to audiences. It's going to your potential customers and beyond. So we've released a blog recently, which we're going to discuss now, which is the 5 reasons your business needs a podcast. Now, our business has a podcast.
It does.
You're listening to it right this second.
Holy moly. It's like Inception.
It is like Inception, a podcast within a podcast. The first reason we have here is simply to generate traffic.
How people consume media is different now. You really want to be able to sort of touch people on all the different ways that they're going to consume media. And some people like to read things, some people like to watch things, and other people like to listen to things.
Yes.
And now that, most smartphones, I mean, the iPhone comes with podcast app as standard.
Yes.
It means that more and more people are listening to podcasts. And like you say, it's a great way of, getting out that information. Like, do I want to read a newsletter? Personally, no. Would I listen to it?
People don't have time to do that anymore.
No.
People are very impatient. While you're waiting for something to take 2 seconds to load on your computer, you usually get your phone out and start looking.
Exactly.
While the big internet's taking its time, I check the little internet. So you need to offer people other alternatives to simply reading. Maybe you can listen to a podcast that tells you information that you could read. You don't have to do anything apart from go about your daily just listening to headphones or out loud.
But I remember the commute, 10, 15 years ago, and you'd always have some guy with his broadsheet in your face.
Yes.
And that's not euphemism, that's a newspaper.
Yes.
But now, there's more people on trains, or the trains are smaller, or I don't know, we certainly seem to be more packed in there. But you don't see people reading newspapers. Everyone's just on their phone. Everyone's listening to something. So having a way to essentially give people access to information in bite-sized chunks is really, really powerful, and podcasting is a really, really great way of doing that. And
as you mentioned there with the newspapers, even newspapers now themselves have podcasts. The majority of them have their own podcasts anyway, so they're still getting the news out there. So you can do, obviously you can't flick through a podcast, you can do your 15-second skip if you've got your iPhone.
But of course.
But saying about the audience, so according to an audio measurement survey of Spring 2017, 5.5 million adults in the UK used podcasts.
Wow, 5.5 in the UK alone.
Yeah, and that was in spring of 2017, so a year ago, effectively.
And I honestly think there's probably been a big jump since then.
It seems to jump year on year. Listeners can subscribe to you over time and constantly keep building your audience. This is why, as a business, if you have something to say, you're not only gaining followers or listeners, you're also gaining potential future customers, but you're also spreading you're getting to know them, you're building a relationship with them, as opposed to them just reading your advert.
One of the things we talk about with all of our clients is what differentiates them from the competitor.
Yes.
What makes you better than the next guy. And to be honest, lots of services are the same. Lots of things are exactly the same.
Yes.
What makes it different is you and the people in your business. And if if you're really fun people, then you should put that across, and you should put it across on social media, and you should put it across any way you can. If you're very serious and very specific about, or very detail orientated, again, you should put that across. It's whoever you are. That's why people want to work with you. Now, people work with people first and foremost, and unless they're buying a product,
yes,
in which case you just want to see the product work. But even then, I'll still buy into the people who make that product, the people who are presenting it to me. So podcasting is a great way of actually finding out like who's behind the curtain.
Yes, absolutely.
Who is making this? Why do they care about it? Why are they passionate about it? Just like we're doing here. Like I love podcasting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, 100%.
Like you and I met through podcasting.
Yes, yes. I'm only podcasting here because I podcasted outside of GLPro beforehand.
We're back to Inception.
Yeah.
But it's a great medium to really get to know someone, because you can't keep up a pretense for months and months and months,
yes,
and hours and hours and hours of podcasting. So your audience actually gets to know you, and there's something really powerful about that, because when someone gets to know you, they want to buy from you more.
You've actually touched on a really interesting point, which I don't think is even on this list, is that if you are going to do a business podcast, they say anyone can do a podcast. Effectively, that is true. Anyone can talk. But you need to pick the right voice and the right person to do your podcast. The CEO of said company might not be the best person to do it.
That's right.
They might think they are, but they might not be the best. They might have to find the right person with the right voice and the ability to talk and be enthusiastic about what they're, selling or discussing.
Yeah.
So it does also boil down to finding the right person to be the voice for your company that potential listeners or consumers are going to relate to and respond to.
It's super important, because you really don't want a boring podcast.
You don't want a monotone voice, no.
But just in the same way that you don't want a boring newsletter, you don't want a boring social media post. You don't, if it's not engaging, don't do it.
Yeah.
There's no, there is no point in just releasing for releasing's sake, because you probably have a job to do. But as using it as a piece of marketing collateral, it can be so powerful.
Yeah.
Because it's something else that you can be using on digital marketing to promote, and ultimately the message is the same as all of your other messaging.
Yeah, and you can also cross promote by having guests on to discuss said products, or some people further down the chain or further up the chain. Like right now I'm sat here with you, the managing director of GLPro. But I could
congratulations.
Thank you. Oh, I've made it. But I could also, but that doesn't mean further down the line I could sit down and talk to another managing director from a company that we've worked with previously or yet to work with.
Yeah.
You can always cross promote and that way build an even bigger audience. Now, we seem to be adding more and more reasons why when we've only really gone past the first reason.
But we love podcasting.
Exactly. So we're really going to go in on it. The second reason is that it is also just as effective and also a cheap alternative to video.
Yes.
I mean, just as effective if it's used correctly. I'd say with video, you do have the pro of you can see that on social media and it will start playing before you click on it.
Yes.
So it does grow. Whereas a podcast won't start playing out loud when you look at it.
That's right. And so I don't know whether I agree fully that it's as effective as video, because video is killer. But the problem is video is expensive.
That's what's, yeah.
Because, if you try and, but like everything, bad video isn't effective.
Yes, no.
So what's great about podcasting is essentially you can get a fantastic quality of sound, and it can be incredibly mobile without spending the earth at all.
Yes.
Without spending that, you can get, literally studio quality equipment for a few hundred.
Yeah.
Maybe £500. I don't know. The nice thing is about podcasting as well, and the equipment, is it's very scalable.
Yeah.
And you can kind of purchase it as and when, and if you decide that your sound isn't good enough, then you can go and buy a better mic.
I mean, you can start, I wouldn't recommend it for your business, but you can start from as simple as just a phone. You can record a podcast on a phone.
I've listened to some great podcasts that record on a phone as well.
A lot, especially like interviews out and about. Sometimes it is easier just to throw your phone down and hit record.
Yep.
And there you go. But with video, sometimes if it's produced in-house and you're trying to do it yourself, it can be stressful and a bit of an expensive endeavour.
Well, and the setup. To get video right, we create a lot of videos here at GLPro, and one of the things that we really focus on is like getting that lighting correct, dressing the set well, thinking, it's a little bit more of a palaver. It's a little bit more of, you need to put a little bit more effort into getting a video right.
And all the discussions and the production and the planning we do before we even step foot in the place we're going to film in. There's so much that goes on before, where now we just set up the mics and sit down.
Yeah, and that's the other thing as well, is it's for the audience, for the person that's on mic or the person that's being filmed. It's a lot less pressure.
Absolutely.
To talk into a mic.
Yeah.
You know, you and I are not camera ready right now.
No, not at all. No. I've not got my face on. I'm in my rags.
I haven't got your face on.
Yeah, I've definitely got my radio face on.
Exactly. But that's, there's something kind of great to that. And because of that, we're nice and relaxed, and it's been easy to set up. It only takes a couple of minutes to kind of set up all the mics and you're ready to roll. In the same way, if you've got someone coming into being interviewed, you start sticking a camera in the face, a lot of people collapse.
Yes.
A lot of people collapse, whereas a microphone is just a conversation. You and I are looking at each other and talking to each other just as we would in a meeting.
Yes.
Or just as we would in any other conversation, which is, makes it a lot easier for everyone involved. You can also run a lot longer.
Yeah.
Like it's an awful lot longer to run.
The edit's a lot easier.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Exactly. If you've got 2 cameras running for an hour, that's 2 straight hours that someone's going to have to scrub that footage, plus the audio.
Yeah.
So potentially 3 hours that they're going to have to go through before they can start editing. Whereas with a podcast, it's all kind of there and we're ready to roll. And also it's a conversation a lot of times. So you don't necessarily have to edit as much and have to do as much.
If you do it right, it doesn't really much editing. You just got to do the sound. But it depends on, said guess, if there are a lot of ahs, tuts, heavy breathing, or someone starts drilling outside or bird flies into the window. All the things that you can't help happening. But they're easier to rectify than
because
somebody walking into the shot.
Exactly. Because if any of those things happen in a film shoot, you have to stop and start again.
Right, yeah, 100%.
And the thing is if you're talking about having 2 cameras out, the investment in that equipment is going to be 5 times what it's going to be for podcasting.
Right. So another interesting point is that my wife works for a retailer, and actually today they've been told that they have to be online at a certain time in the evening to watch a live webinar. Ugh. Like they have to be there to watch it.
Okay.
And I was just like, wow, that's crazy. Like but you can watch it after it's been on.
Of course.
Like, you don't have to watch it live because it's like in the evening. No, I've been told what to do it. And it's like, wow, that just shows, and this is a company that has used podcasting, but it's like, you're not really getting it just yet. Like
no, and I in a previous life used to work in IT, and when I did, webinars were a huge thing.
Yeah,
just a huge thing, and you kind of saw the death of it, and it's because it's that live aspect to it. Why not just have this as something that's available forever?
Yeah,
I don't want to necessarily have to be there at a certain time to listen to and get the information when. If you just make it available, I can go and get that whenever. Now, obviously, the nice thing about webinars was the interactiveness of it.
Right, yes.
So you could ask questions and put that out there. And yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. But in my opinion, that's what social media is for.
Yes.
You can connect with your audience that way and you can interact with them.
Ask your questions in the comments below, yeah.
It's something like a podcast is you're putting that information out there, and it means that someone can digest it in their own time, get around to it, and that way it makes it easier for listeners, makes it easier for subscribers, and makes it easier. And makes it easier ultimately for people to actually listen to it and not just discount the information.
100%. Moving on to the next point here, again, we've already discussed both these points, but it is the fact that the audience gets to know you. And a podcast can make an otherwise cold, faceless company display its warmer, friendlier sides by using your voice to create a personality. Now, we did mention this briefly earlier, but it is so important if you are going to have a podcast for a business to get this part right. It's easy to do, but this is the part you have to 100% get right. You need to make sure that they're going to keep going, they're going to be consistent with their mood, their discussion, their engagements, and that they are going to keep driving the podcast forward. You don't want to you can do like guest hosts every other week, or we'll get blah 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 from accounts to do it next week, or we'll get the paperboy Johnny to do it. like it doesn't, that might lose you a lot of audiences.
And unless Johnny's damn charismatic.
Well, then for his episode it'll be great, but if in the next episode they want to get June from the canteen downstairs in,
well, that's it. Well, I guess it comes back to kind of a rule which is across all digital marketing, which is consistency.
Right,
and it's the same thing if you're going to release a video series. Again, consistency. You want to have it consistent. I want to know that a podcast is released on a certain day, so I know it's there. I want to know that the people that I listen to that podcast for are there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't listen to a Joe Rogan podcast without Joe Rogan.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Right. Even if it was just the great guests he books, or one of the other people who's in his community involved, I probably wouldn't listen to it.
Yeah.
Or I wouldn't listen to that show as regularly, because ultimately I'm going to be like, I don't like that guy, or I don't like this guy, or I don't like that girl, I don't like that girl. So I really think it's important to find that person those people who are going to be the host of the podcast to drive it forward, because they're going to care. But also, podcasting is a skill. It is really something that you learn to do. It's why, radio presenters have been radio presenters for an awful long time, because they're great at it. And, being able to fill dead air, being able to ask people questions in a way where you'll keep them talking, but not necessarily talk over them, not talking over people. It's an incredible skill. And it really takes practice, and the more you do it, you really will get better at it. And it's it's an enjoyable skill to learn, and it's very that those skills, to be honest, are actually really transferable into the rest of life. I find myself being a better conversationalist just from podcasting. I know when someone's trying to make a point but hasn't necessarily finished saying what they're saying.
Yeah, man, so interesting. You've kind of jumped straight to point 5, which is confidence in public speaking,
and it helps massively.
Yeah, and this does talk about how over time you will pick up that skill. If you don't have it, you might have it to begin with, but it will get a lot better as you go on. You will get a lot more confident in doing it, and it will be more confident when you're not recording as well, because you'll be used to talking.
Yeah.
And you'll learn so much information, even though it's it's your business or business you're part of. You will learn so much more talking about it with other people over and over again. Now, the other point we jumped across was very similar to one before that, was just how your audience gets to know you, and you get to tap into a wider audience as well.
Yes.
Which is the same, I guess, the same we've talked about it with social media for a business, is that it is about reaching a wider audience, which is obviously the goal for all these platforms. So that is the goal, to reach a wider audience.
If you're going to do something for your business, obviously you want to, it's for a good reason, which is to get yourself out there.
Exactly. And you can also engage with your current customers and audience, but you want to get a wider one as well. And that is the ultimate goal. So what other ways are there to reach a wider audience? As I mentioned earlier, you can cross-promote with guests and get guest hosts on, or just people on to interview. Sometimes it might be talking about new exciting promotions coming up or something big happening in the company. Sometimes you might not want to go too silly on stuff like that with like promotions and offers, because then it becomes an ad.
Yeah.
Rather than a podcast.
Yeah, exactly, which isn't necessarily what a podcast is. Use that for the show notes.
So we wouldn't sit here now and be like, oh, we've got a great offer on podcast editing coming up. We can't talk about it too much right now, but in a couple episodes, check back and see what discount we offer. No, because you can see that on social media.
Yeah.
So there is also a fine line between your content that is in your podcast and isn't in your podcast.
That's a really good point. That's a really, really good point, because the whole point of having a podcast is it's a little bit more intimate. It actually lets people, like I was saying, lets people behind the curtain, lets people kind of in a little bit more.
Yeah.
And by letting people in, you're letting people being part of your community, and that's it's why salespeople set up meetings.
Yes.
Is so they can actually have the conversation.
Yes.
And you can find out information about the company you're looking to speak to. So yeah, I really think that is important.
Do you listen to, you don't have to name any, but off the top of it, do you listen to any business-based podcasts, potentially that would be under like a company, or would you be willing to listen to any business-based podcasts?
So yeah, no, I absolutely do. But I mostly listen to, it's funny as well, I listen to them for information. Yeah. So I'll listen to podcasts about certain subjects that companies release, because they are specifically about things that we do. So I listen to social media strategies. I'll listen to sales podcasts. I'll listen to video production, as well as web design and design as well. Essentially, just to find out more information. It's a way, it's a way of us tapping into ways of it. And I have to admit, from listening to them, it's actually ended up me working with those companies.
Right. Okay.
For a simple reason is I've ended up going in the show notes, or I found them really informative, and it's been a case of like, you know what, I want to speak to this. If they know this much and they're willing to give this much away, I want to speak to them directly. So yeah, for me, I mean, I'm a sucker. It really works with me.
Okay, that's great. Because my follow-up question to that, out of curiosity, was going to be, are they always engaging hosts? But if you're there just for information, Is that an issue for you?
So not always.
No.
So not always. I mean, if I go back to IT, a lot of the manufacturers that I used to work with were US based, and obviously the US has understood podcasting a lot longer than
of course, absolutely,
the rest of the world has. So they release it, and it'd be some very, very long, dry, technical podcasts out there where they really explain sort of, a subject or something. It does make me realize just how much they know, and it is a great way to like digest that information. So it has ultimately made me part of that community and want to work with them. So it
is the knowledge is power at the end of the day.
Absolutely, even when it hasn't been the most engaging host. However, if it's not the most engaging host, I do find it hard to go back to that podcast.
So once you've found the information you want, you're not then going to go back out of curiosity to see.
No, and I might not, I might not subscribe. I might just look at the specific episode that I want to, to go for. So I think, trying to be engaging and trying to give away as much, pertinent information about the subject, that's going to speak to your audience as possible is incredibly important.
Well, that's very well put.
Thank you.
I'd say that kind of wraps up. Reasons your business needs a podcast.
I think it does as well.
Okay, we'll see you next episode where we dive furthermore into podcasting. Thank you for listening to GLCast, the official podcast of GLProUK. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Facebook at GLProUK and find us on our LinkedIn page. Thank you.